And welcome to the Aaron Katzman Show. I'm your host, Aaron Katzman. We speak to your life, your money, and your investments. And as always, we're coming to you from the spiritual and soon to be financial capital of the world, Jerusalem, Israel. If you like this content, please hit the like button below. If you've not yet done so, please subscribe to both the YouTube channel and to the podcast. And if you think somebody may find this of interest, believe it or not, there is a share button that you can go ahead and share it with them as well. So I was reading a really interesting article by Adam Grossman, The Humble Dollar. It's titled Navigating the Unknowns of Financial Decisions. I'm going to read a little bit from it and then we'll get into it. He goes, when it comes to financial decisions, there are, as I've argued before, two answers to every question: what the calculator says and how you feel about it. There's a fly in the ointment, though. Calculator answers might appear to be based on logic, but they're still imperfect. Why? Ian Wilson, a former executive at General Electric, explained it this way: no amount of sophistication is going to allay the fact that all knowledge is about the past and all decisions are about the future. In the absence of a crystal ball, in other words, even the most seemingly rigorous answer to any question will contain a kernel, if not more, of uncertainty. Consider the question of how to establish an asset allocation. Most people's first step would be consult historical data, reviewing past returns for each asset class. That makes sense, and this is certainly how I approach it myself, he says. The challenge, though, is that historical numbers will never be able to perfectly predict the future. At best, they're a guide suggesting where things might go. I mentioned recently, for example, investors' experience in Japan's stock market. During the 1980s, Japan's economy boomed. But after peaking in 1989, the Nikkei index went into a multi-decade slump, recovering only last year after a long 34-year slump. It's doubtful, though, that even the most pessimistic observer would have predicted that result. Such is the difficulty of using historical data. We can't fully rely on it, and yet, despite its inherent weakness, we can also ignore it. Fortunately, there are ways to square this circle. To see how, we can examine four common financial questions. Then he goes on to speak about things, but this is a question which comes up all the time. There are a lot of planners out there who use simulators like Monte Carlo simulation. Well, they'll run thousands and thousands of scenarios, but those scenarios are all based on historical data. I would say differently than he said, right? A few years ago, I would tell clients, you're running these simulations and they're telling you that, your average on a balanced portfolio or moderate portfolio, you're going to be returning 7 or 8%. But that was based on the fact that, on a 60-40 portfolio, 40% of your money historically was earning like 6% in fixed income. And when interest rates were virtually zero, well, in order to get that same 7 or 8% return, the S&P 500 or the market in general would have had to return like 17 or 18%, which actually didn't happen. We had a couple of years which weren't so great. So you always have to take this data with a grain of salt. What I like to do is work backwards, okay? I would just like to say, how much money do we need, right? How much do I have coming in from pensions, from government pensions, government social safety nets, rental properties, whatever it is. How much money do you have coming in, and how much money do you then need to spend? How much are you spending? Right? And then we're going to take the difference, if there is a difference, and then look at your investments to figure out a way to supplement that income. But we're not going to start off by saying, oh, you're going to make X on your investments, because there's no way to know, right? And there's also no way to know actually how much we're going to spend. Everything is questionable. Nothing is a given here. The best laid plans of mice and men, right? People retire. Oh, we're going to travel. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then suddenly, unfortunately, somebody takes ill and all their plans are thrown up in the air. Somebody recently was telling me how their husband got dementia at a very, very young age. And they had all of these plans. They'd moved to a different country, to be closer to some grandchildren, and they had these plans, and now the person's got dementia. So there's that raises a whole other set of issues, financial issues as well. How do you afford that? You might have to get a worker, 24/7 care. different medical expenses associated with it on the one hand. On the other hand, well, you're not going to be traveling. You're not going to, there's a lot of things you're not going to be doing anymore because of the situation of the person. So there's really you're flying blind in many respects. You have to do the best that you can do. But you can't, and I always tell people this, you have to be flexible, right? People want to automate things, right? They want to say, okay, we're going to take, in a couple of years, we need money for X, Y, and Z. We're going to take it, and then that's going to be an ongoing transfer of funds. Let's say every year we're going to transfer this money. Where should we take it from? And they have multiple different accounts, right? They have IRA accounts and they've got taxable accounts. And then in foreign, like in Israel, for example, they might have provident funds, all kinds of different things, right? They want to know today what's going to be in 5 years. Where are we going to take the money from? And I say you can't do that. You really have to do it in real time, right? Figure out what's going on. Maybe the markets are down. Maybe they're up. There's tax consequences. There's all kinds of different issues that go into this. And you really, really have to be flexible and realize that you can't you're not going to try and solve a problem in 25 years from now today. You're not going to have all the information. You have no idea how much money you're going to have. You don't know what the situation is going to be. So I don't even believe trying. That's one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of all these simulators, to try and predict what's going to happen in 30 years from now. Come on. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone in 30 years from now. It's a blueprint or is a guide, let's say, to get you on track and to create certain discipline, because if you do X, Y, and Z, there's a good chance this might happen. That I don't mind using it for that, but to actually rely on it, and I know so many planners who do that also. They'd like to rely on this information. Come on, you really believe we know what's going to happen? We don't know what's going to happen in the next week, right? We know what's going to happen 20 years from now, 30 years from now. There's absolutely no way, and it doesn't take all these different variables into the equation either. So take it with a grain of salt. It might look pretty on a level of marketing. You give them a bound book with pictures and graphs. It looks really impressive, but at the end of the day, what is it? Think about that. So you have to be very, very flexible, and don't try and get too far ahead of yourself predicting the future, because you're not going to be able to. There's too many unknowns. You're never going to get it right. Okay, but you have to still be smart and strategic about your money. You've been tuning in to the Aaron Katzman Show. We speak to your life, money, and your investments. If you like this content, please hit the like button below. If you've not yet done so, please subscribe. That is, subscribe to both the YouTube channel and to the podcast. And if somebody might find this of interest, you can share it with them as well. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll speak to you soon.